Now let's go ahead and talk about some other useful string manipulation methods that we can use in Python. The first one is the find method, which is very useful if you want to find a substring or the presence of a substring within a string, and the method is going to return to us the index where that substring starts. So for example, if we want to use that, we have this message here. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test, beep, beep, beep. And if we want to look for the presence of the word broadcast in that message, we can do so by saying message.find, and we want to go ahead and pass in here the word broadcast. And this will then return to us the index where that word starts. So you can start to imagine all the different use cases for where this might be really useful if you're looking for the presence of an individual word or individual character or something like this. And the find method is going to look for the first instance of that word or character that you're searching for. Next, we have the title method, which is used to apply title case capitalization to a given string. So let's say that I have the variable here, book, and it's The Great Gatsby, but the capitalization is all mixed up here, right? So this doesn't look good at all. And I want to apply title, or what's called book casing, to this string. Well, then I can use this title method here by saying book.title, and this will actually return with the book casing here where the first letter of each word is capital. Now, what if I want to make everything uppercase? Well, for that we have the upper method. So we can say book.upper, and that would give me the title with all of the characters upper. And then we also have subsequently the lower method, which you guessed it, is going to give us the title in all lowercase. Now, there's a lot of really great use cases for upper and lower. You know, title book casing is also really useful in some scenarios, but you think about something like a password that's not case sensitive, right? If we wanted to go ahead and process that and take it all to uppercase or all to lowercase to do comparisons, or a username that's not case sensitive is a better example than a password because passwords typically are case sensitive. But at any rate, these are really, really useful methods when we get into our next modules where we're starting to do comparisons and logic and looking for comparing one string to another string. We can normalize those by making both of the strings uppercase or both the strings lowercase and more easily compare them to one another. Again, more on that later. Next, we have the replace method, which works like a find and replace tool that you might be familiar with in a text editor. So it accepts two arguments, the value that you're searching for and the value that you want to replace it with. So for example, let's say that we have this message here, beep, 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 and I want to replace all of these periods with exclamation points, right, for emphasis. So I could say message sound, and then I'm going to use the replace method here. And again, two arguments. The first argument is what am I looking for? So I'm looking for the character period, so that substring, and then I want to replace it with the character of exclamation point. Right, so if I now do this, you'll see it takes that message and it replaces the periods with exclamation points. Next, we have the strip method, which is very useful, especially when you're working with messy data sets that might contain extra spaces or characters on the leading or the trailing end of the string. This is very common when you get into working with messy data sets. You're going to have a lot of stuff that you're going to have to clean up. So the strip method works by removing certain characters on the left or the right side, or what we refer to as the leading and trailing side of a string. And by default, without any arguments, what it's going to do is remove spaces, but you can also specify characters that you want to remove. So for example, if we look here at this ID number, we've got some leading spaces here. Looks like there's 2 or 3, and then one trailing space. If we want to cut those out, we can just say ID number dot strip with no arguments and run that, and that will go ahead and cut out those extra spaces. Again, very, very useful. If we want to apply the strip method to remove spaces and then remove other characters, like in this case, these extra asterisks that really aren't doing anything for us, and we just want to get to the true number, well, then we can apply the strip method multiple times and do it in a layered fashion. So you can actually apply a method on top of a method. So if we, for example, I'm just going to copy this, and I now say strip again a second time here, and I specify the asterisk symbol here, and you can use double or single quotations here when you're typing that in, and I run this, it's going to give me that ID number without any spaces or any extra characters. And then, as you can imagine, I can then convert this. For example, if I wanted to take that and convert it to an integer, now I can do that because I don't have those extra characters, and converting it to a number, that is. You can also use special versions of the strip method to remove certain characters on only the left or the right side of a string. So for example, if I wanted to, do the same thing that we just did here, but I only want to apply it to the left side, to the leading side of the string, I just change this to lstrip, and that will pull out just, the stuff on the beginning, the leading end. And then likewise, I can do the same exact thing to the right side by changing it to rstrip, and that will pull out just the right side characters. Lastly, we have split. So the split method is used to convert a string to a list. Now, we haven't talked about lists yet, but it's going to convert to a list where each individual word in the string becomes a separate list item. So while we haven't covered lists yet, this is very useful when you're processing text data prior to analysis. So for example, if I had a message and I wanted to break it into each word into different items in a list, and then I analyze each word individually, I can use this split method, and by default the separator is just going to be white space. However, you can specify other characters to be used as separators. So let's look at two examples here. So if I've got this message here that says this is a test, and I want to split this into a list, I'm going to say message.split, and I'm just going to say split on the space here. This is going to take out each word, right? Just like that. So we have now 4 different items in a list. Or if I want to split something, based on a character, you might have some comma separated data, or some, in this case, this hashtag separated data, which is kind of strange. The split method will still be very useful here. So I can say fruits dot split, and then I can specify that I want to split everything based on that hashtag, and that will give me this nice clean list of those 4 different fruits from that string. So those are other useful string methods that you can apply in Python.